Okay, I think I can get started because some of the slides that I'm going to present are background and just announcement slides. But thank you all for joining us for the April C3 chat. It's going to be with Matt Reidy from Biomarkerhelp, and we're going to be talking about biomarkers. And so I wanted to give some context about biomarkers and its importance in cholangiocarcinoma before we get started. And we are the Canadian Cholangiocarcinoma Collaborative. My name is Leonard. I'm the project manager for the C3. We were founded in 2023 and funded by a Canadian Cancer Society Breakthrough Team Grant that's also co-funded by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. We operate mainly out of the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute, but we are a national collaborative and we have a lot of patient support programs and things going on. So if you're not connected with us, please connect with us, and we'd love to help you out in any way we can. So biliary tract cancers, as we all know, are rare and aggressive. They include, usually they're subdivided into cholangiocarcinoma and gallbladder cancer, and then cholangiocarcinoma can be further divided into intrahepatic, extrahepatic, and then depending on where the cancer forms, it's either perihilar, closer to the liver, or distal, further from the liver. And it's rare. It occurs in about 1,000 Canadians or 1 in 50,000 people. It's very difficult to diagnose, and it's often caught at late stages. Some of the common symptoms include jaundice, yellowing of the skin and eyes, dark urine, clay-colored stool, abdominal pain, itchy skin, weight loss, nausea, vomiting, and fever. And it's also unique because it has a very high number of targetable genomic alterations. So by genomic alterations, these are mutations that occur in your cells, and that's sort of how cancer is formed from the beginning. It's formed by a series of mutations that causes the cell to continually replicate without control. And so there could be many different types of mutations, and each mutation is sort of different on its own, but it does present a way to target that mutation if there is a drug available that acts on it. For cholangiocarcinoma, it is very mutated. As I said, about 40 to 50% do carry a genetic alteration, and it's different depending on if intrahepatic or extrahepatic. And again, there are many different types of mutations that occur in this population. So really, this rare cancer could be thought of as a bunch of ultra-rare cancers put together because no tumor types are exactly the same. And so some of the other barriers that we are trying to address when trying to deal with this cancer and care for the people affected by it. So as I mentioned, there's also lots of targets and therapies for these mutations. This table here shows the type of mutation on the left here, their frequency within cholangiocarcinoma or gallbladder cancer, and if there are any therapies that work to target those mutations. I also identified the ones that are actually available and accessible in Canada compared to the States. And as you can see, we have a lot less that are available and accessible. Mostly though, these can be accessed through a clinical trial, but getting on a clinical trial also presents its own sets of barriers too. And so in order to know what type of mutations you might have, you need to go through molecular testing. It's also called biomarker testing or comprehensive genomic testing or next generation sequencing, NGS. So there's a lot of terms for this type of test, but essentially it is used to identify what type of mutations are present in your cancer. So they'll take a bit of your tumor or maybe even some of your blood and look for those mutations. It is recommended for all patients with biliary tract cancer to receive this testing, but it's not part of the standard of care process in Canada, and it's only partly covered throughout Canada. And so we are actively trying to advocate for molecular testing to become part of this routine profiling and testing for patients. We want to have this become reflexive or just part of the normal diagnostic procedure for advanced cancers and biliary tract cancers. And so we do have this petition that I started, and if you haven't already signed it or shared it, you can scan the QR code and it'll lead you there. But we hope to eventually, with all of the support behind getting this funded, bring it to our health ministers and bring this issue to light. There are also a lot of other organizations that are advocating for biomarker testing for other types of cancers. CCRAN is a big one, and they actually have a conference coming up June 2026. And I think it'll be a good one. They are really leading the charge in this. But we're also going to be advocating specifically for biliary tract cancer in Canada. So yeah, those are the intro slides that I wanted to present. Here's some of our information. Again, you can see all of our C3 chats on our YouTube. And if you want to see upcoming ones, you can visit our website at www.cholangio.ca/C3chats. And yeah, so without further ado, I'll introduce our guest speaker for today. And we have Matt Reidy, and he founded Biomarkerhelp, and he's also a long-term survivor of cholangiocarcinoma. His survival is a direct result of biomarker testing and immunotherapy treatment that it unlocked. And so he has firsthand experience in navigating the complex journey of cancer treatment. And that was really the foundation and inspiration for biomarkerhelp.com. So this is one way that he gives back to the community, and he's really grateful for his unusual survival, which I'm sure we'll hear more about. And yeah, so without further ado, I'll let Matt now take over the screen, and I'll stop talking, and let's get into the meat of the discussion. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Leonard, for the opportunity to talk. I know several of you in person and online. As Leonard said, I'm a long-term survivor of cholangiocarcinoma. I was diagnosed in December of 2013, so that puts me at 12 years or so, 12 and a half years. And I had parahilar cholangiocarcinoma. Was fortunate to have had the opportunity to have a resection, which I did, and then I had recurrence. And during my recurrence, or following my recurrence, I had done chemo with Gemcis at the time, which was the standard of care, followed up by another resection attempt that failed. And then I did some radiation and some oral chemo. And during my original resection, which was in January of 2014, they had sent a sample of my tumor off to get sequenced. And the results came back with a bunch of stuff that meant nothing to me, and it was kind of a dead end. Nobody, there were no actionable items in this report. But by the time I had recurrence and went through all these other treatments, I came to the point where I was kind of out of options. And just by chance, the timing was such that the immunotherapy drug Keytruda had been approved in the US for skin cancer. And my oncologist was thankfully very active and in research and things, and had read about a clinical trial for the drug that had just ended. And he kind of put two and two together and said, hey, there's this mutation on your report, this biomarker that that I think might mean that this drug might work for you. And in the U.S., at least, a doctor can prescribe a drug once it's been approved for any condition. They can prescribe it for any other condition. It's called off-label prescribing. The only catch is that insurance pretty much never pays for the drug. They don't cover it. So he said, it's going to cost you $13,000 every 3 weeks. Do you want to give it a try? And my life was on the line, so of course I said yes, and started the drug. And within 3 months, my cancer was gone. My CA19-9 was a good marker for me, and you could see it just drop. And then the tumor, which was small, became, disappeared from scans. I did get the drug manufacturer to give me the drug for free, thankfully. I took it for 18 months because at the time nobody knew really how long to take it. It had just come out of clinical trials and things. So it was quite unexpected. But like Leonard said, that's the power of biomarkers, right? And back in that time frame, there were no biomarkers for cholangiocarcinoma that had approved therapies, drugs. And here we are 10 years later, and we've got multiple ones for IDH biomarkers and FGFR2 fusion biomarkers and different things in the pipeline. So it's a very different landscape, and getting tested is critical. And again, I've been around long enough to see it change from getting tested was unusual, doctors didn't know about it, to now it's becoming more and more common and more routine. And it, of course, depends on the institution that you go to and the doctors that you see, whether it's totally routine or not, those types of things. So my experience, again, has led me to be fortunate enough to give back my professional background. I retired 12 years ago, 11 years ago, roughly, because I thought I was going to die and didn't want to waste my time working. So I was an IT professional for 30 years. So computer technology is my wheelhouse, and I've found a way to try to put that to work for the cancer community. So originally, I created a website called Genomic Focus. Some of you have heard of, are aware of, but I've recently replaced it with Biomarkerhelp, which is a whole new version, whole new website that does things a whole lot better. So let me jump into that and share my screen and give you a demo of this. Can everybody see that? I'll rely on you, Leonard, to let me know that you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So this is the home page. It's just the URL is biomarkerhelp.com, and I also created a legitimate nonprofit, U.S.-based nonprofit, that this system is a project of the nonprofit. So the goal here is, it's completely private, it's completely secure. There's no financial motivation for getting people to use it, etc. This is purely a way for me to give back. So in a nutshell, Biomarkerhelp allows you to upload a copy of your biomarker report. It will automatically pull the relevant information out of it. And then you can also record kind of your health journey, and I'll go through all this. And all that information then is used by the system to match targeted therapy drugs and clinical trials to your specific cancer type. Biomarkerhelp is not cholangiocarcinoma specific. It supports every kind of cancer. So if you know other people who have cancer, be sure and let them know about it as well, because it can help other folks without cholangiocarcinoma. So the homepage kind of goes through this. We, automatic report analysis, intelligent trial matching, and we're in the age of artificial intelligence. So there's tools in use here that look at your history, and rather than just show you what all the trials that are out there that are available for cholangiocarcinoma are, it tries to look at your specific history and recommend ones that are maybe best for you. So narrowing down that large field of potential clinical trials. I mentioned the health and profile timeline, and then another big feature is the ability to connect with other patients and caregivers. So oftentimes, I also manage a Facebook group, cholangiocarcinoma targeted and immunotherapy group, and a member of the cholangiocarcinoma warriors group and the caregivers group, and over the years, people are posting on those groups repeatedly. Is there anybody out there like me? Anybody who's got these biomarkers or has gone to see this doctor at this institution, or has had these treatments? Anybody that I can talk to? Anybody who's been a member of a certain clinical trial? And we, as patients and caregivers, we gain an awful lot of information and help and support by connecting with others. So there's a feature in here that will think of it as a dating game for cancer patients. Only instead of using information about your interests, et cetera, it uses your medical history to suggest who you might want to reach out to and connect with to share information. And I'll go through that as well. And then all your information that you put into the system, you can get back out. So you can generate a report, share it with your doctor, share it with your family, caregivers, friends, whoever, anybody who's advocating for you, and have kind of a snapshot of your health history. It's as simple as creating an account, uploading the information, and off we go. So it is designed for patients, caregivers, and advocates. We also have some professionals who are using it, doctors and clinicians and things. There's some tools in it specifically designed to help them as well. But let's get started. We'll just click on Get Started. It asks for a name. I'm going to put in Matt, and I'm just going to put C3. I'm going to say I'm a patient, and give it an email address, and pick a password. Confirm your password, and agree to the terms, etc., and create an account. Oh, I can't type. Okay, so now the system has sent an email to verify, and this is a pretty standard practice to make sure that you are somebody's not using your email address to sign you up for stuff. So off screen, I'm looking at my email account that says "Welcome to Biomarkerhelp," blah blah blah, and there's a button in the email that says "Verify your email and get started." So I am going to do that now. Copy this over here. One second. Gosh. There we go. So it brings you, first time you log on, it brings you to kind of an onboarding step where you now start to give it some information, say what cancer type. In our case, we'll choose cholangiocarcinoma. Gives you the option to select your subtype. So the more information you give the system, the better the information is that you're going to get out of it. None of this is required other than the cancer type. But here, in my case, I'll say extrahepatic parahilar. What stage were you at diagnosis? I was stage 2, and I was diagnosed in December of 2013. Right, and I'm currently in ED. Okay. And then it prompts you to upload health documents. So you can upload lots of documents, lots of different types of documents if you want. The one that we really need is your biomarker report. So I'm going to go pull out a copy of my actual biomarker report. So it uploads my file, and now it's extracting all the biomarkers that it finds from this report. Right? And it doesn't matter what company did your testing. It's smart enough to be able to read and pull out the information from all kinds of different reports. It also works, and most patients aren't even aware of these different testing types. There's the next generation sequencing is what we normally talk about when we talk about biomarker reports. But there's also other testing types you may or may not be aware of. Things immunohistochemistry. Help me out here. IHC testing, which is a little different. It uses staining techniques and things to pull out other types of biomarkers, not necessarily mutations. There's lots of different types of biomarkers and lots of different types of biomarker testing, but this is the big one. All right, so it found these 20 biomarkers in my report. I can review those if I want to, and then I click continue. And now it's asking me about the connect feature and whether I want to join the connect feature. And I've taken care to make this as friendly as possible. And if you have any feedback on it, let me know. But basically, when you join this connect feature, only your first name is visible to other people, whether you're a patient or a caregiver, what your cancer type is, what your age range is, not your exact age, where you're generally located. The biomarkers that you both share with each other are shown, but not all of the biomarkers. And then some indication of how active you are. There's no point in connecting with somebody who's not been on the system for a year. We don't share last names, your exact date of birth, your exact address, your email, or your phone number until you're connected. If somebody requests to connect with you and you accept their request, then you both can see each other's email and or phone number. And that's how you then you connect offline. You get connected in the system, but then you communicate with each other offline. So this does not have a chat feature or an email feature or any of that kind of stuff. And then health history details are never shared as well. So here, I'll say, yep, male. You put in your birth year, and it then calculates your age based on that, right? And I'll say I'm in Richmond, Virginia. It is, and I can put in my phone number, whatever. Right. So I'll join Connect. All right, so those are the onboarding steps. You do that once, and then you get taken to what's called your dashboard, which has some tiles in the middle here, and these are kind of the big sections of the website. There's My Health, Trials, Drugs, Connect. There's a lounge, a video lounge, Share, and Research. So if we go into My Health, we can look at and expand each of these sections. There's the timeline I talked about. So right now I've only told it when I was diagnosed, and I uploaded a report for my biomarkers, and it pulled the date out of that report. So my timeline is pretty sparse. I can expand the diagnosis, and you can go in and change this as things change. Documents contains documents that you upload. So again, it's if you're being treated at multiple locations and you get different reports, different documents, and you want to put them all in one place, you can. They would all show up here, and you can click on them to view them. So if I click on my biomarker report, this is my old Foundation 1 report that contains lots of gobbledygook that you may or may not care about or know how to read. Biomarkers shows the list of biomarkers that were either extracted from a report that you uploaded, but you also have the ability to manually add some biomarkers. So if you don't have an electronic copy of your report, or for some reason there's a biomarker that wasn't successfully extracted, you can add a biomarker. But this gives a list of all the biomarkers, and the source column shows you whether it was extracted or whether it was manually entered. And then the details, the first column is the gene, things that we usually refer to the biomarkers as, but then there's lots of different variants of a gene mutation, so it captures that. And there's also lots of types of gene changes. Some of them are mutations, and there's amplifications and deletions and fusions and all kinds of stuff that as a patient you shouldn't have to know about, but it's important to have that information. Then there's a section called treatments, and here's where you can kind of build out your health history, right? So in my case, I'll add a treatment and say that my first treatment was surgery. I had surgery, and I can type in I had a resection. I can put in my doctor's name. I can put in where I had my surgery, and this is a list that you can select from. It should have places in Canada as well. So yeah, so Princess Margaret, for example. Maybe I should have chosen a different one. Anyway, you can put all this stuff in. Mine happened to be at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, and I can say it was January 2014. I can put in notes. So that was my first treatment, and it shows up here under treatments. I can put another one, and I can say, okay, I did chemotherapy, and I used cisplatin and gemcitabine, and I was 2 weeks on, 1 off. Again, totally up to you what you want to capture here. Let's say I did this from March to April of 2015. And I completed it. And another treatment I'll put in, I did radiation therapy. What type of radiation? In my case, it was intensity modulated radiation therapy. I did that. I drove to Minnesota and spent the month of June and July in 2015 out in Minnesota doing radiation every day. That was loads of fun. And then I did some other stuff too, but I'll keep it brief. I did immunotherapy with Keytruda, which is also called pembrolizumab, and I did that from November 2015 through March of 2017. Right. So now that I have all this treatment history in here. If I go back up to the top and I look at my timeline, shows all of that history. So it gives you a visual of your journey, which can be helpful for you and others to see. I'm going to just go back down. If I participated in a clinical trial, I can add that information here as well. I personally did not, but you put in the trial ID and the dates and that kind of stuff again. You can also select other conditions. Maybe you've got anxiety and high cholesterol and whatever. You can put those in. Again, some clinical trials have different criteria that may bump you out. So the more of this type of information that's in the system, the more accurate the trial recommendations are. You can record who your care team is, doctors' names, what their specialty is, where they are, those types of things, and then any other notes that you might want to keep. So just a place to put your history. At the bottom of this page, there's a link to the NCCN patient guidelines, which is, I think, a U.S. cancer oncologist organization that kind of publishes information about different cancers and education for patients. What is the cancer? Mostly stuff that you probably already know about, but what are the different types of treatment that goes into all kinds of detail? What are the standards of care, et cetera, et cetera. Again, that varies geographically, but good information to know. So that is the My Health section. And there for you anytime to reference or whatnot. There's a button at the top of it that says Export Report. So if I click on that, I can choose what information from My Health I want to export. Usually you'd want it all. You can either download a PDF or email the PDF to yourself. If you want to forward it to a doctor or somebody else, email it to yourself and then forward it on. So if I download this PDF, it opens up in my browser and it shows me here's my biomarkers. Here are the documents that I have stored. Here are, we haven't gotten to this yet, but here's the drugs that it found that match both approved, and this does use US FDA information when it decides what's approved and what's not approved. There's just not a good way to reference what's approved everywhere globally. But in general, the US has the most approved drugs, so it's a place to start and then narrow down. There's also off-label drugs, and again, we'll talk about this in more detail in a minute. There's that list of treatments that I entered and the other health conditions, right? So just a report snapshot of My Health, handy to have to be able to share with somebody if you want to. All right, so back to the dashboard. Now that we've got some health information in here, the real benefit of this, we'll start with drugs. I'll go to the drugs tile, and it shows me again that these are FDA approved, but it found 4 drugs that are approved based on my biomarkers. So pembrolizumab, it actually found 2 drugs, or 3 drugs. Pembrolizumab, which is Keytruda, an immune checkpoint inhibitor, and the biomarker, my biomarker that triggered that match is that I'm mismatch repair deficient. I'm also considered microsatellite high. Different variations of biomarkers, and it's telling us here that this mismatch repair deficiency is inferred based on biomarker, a gene mutation that I have in this MLH1 gene, because this gene is one of many that are associated with this mismatch repair feature of our immune system. And since this gene is mutated and not working properly, I'm considered mismatch repair deficient. Again, just this is details of why these drugs were picked. Same thing with dostarlimab, and these are, it tells you, why this match. You can basically, it's what I just said. Mutations in mismatch repair genes, which include these, indicate likely mismatch repair deficiency. Blah blah blah. So effectively, these three different drugs are all the same type of drug class. They all target and behave the same way. They're actually the same kind of drug class that durvalumab is, which is part of the standard of care now. But for somebody like me with this specific mutation, these drugs have the potential to cure versus just help out. And then there's a section for off-label drugs. So here it found 3 drugs that are approved for biomarkers that I have, but they're not approved for cholangiocarcinoma specifically. So this drug is approved for lung cancer patients who have this gene mutation. This one is for lung cancer, and this one is for breast cancer. So again, at least in the US, a doctor could prescribe these drugs off-label, and more and more of the cancer is not as much about the physical location of the cancer as it is about what biology is driving the cancer. So the reason these aren't FDA approved for cholangiocarcinoma is solely because there were nobody wanted to invest in running clinical trials to prove that they are or are not. So they're good options to at least consider the off-label drugs. And then there's a section at the bottom that talks about all of the targeted drugs. So for different cancer types, et cetera. But you can see that list is long and growing. There's lots of different drugs out there. So this is the drug section that may or may not give you some specific targeted drugs based on your biomarkers. We go back to the dashboard and we look at trials. So usually, you do the standard of care, then you bop around between maybe some different chemotherapies and things. You try a targeted treatment based on your biomarkers, and then the next step would probably be clinical trials. So the system right now is out there, and it's matching. It's looking for all the clinical trials that are related to cholangiocarcinoma and my biomarkers and health history, and it's sorting through them and recommending what the best ones potentially may be for me. So this can take a minute.
While that loads, is there a mobile version of this?
It's mobile friendly. The whole site's mobile friendly. So yeah, you can do this on your iPhone, or your Android phone, or your tablet, or whatever else. So there's a pop-up here that wants to know your location. So I'm going to tell it to always allow. And when you do that, I refresh the screen. This will be a lot quicker. So it shows my location with the blue dot here in Virginia. So the map centers on your physical location, your geographic location. And then all of these dots represent places where clinical trials are happening that are shown on the list on the left-hand side. The circles with numbers you can click on, and it will show you, oh, there's 3 trials in that location. You can zoom in, pinch and zoom, or scroll in with your mouse, and the if you click on one of these markers, it will show you information about that trial. The markers are color coded based on the phase of the trials. So there's phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Phase 1 being the most risky, first in human trials. Phase 4 being much further on. Gives you a little summary of the trial, what it is, where it is. You can click on the trial ID and it will open up a page to clinicaltrials.gov, which is kind of the database of all trials globally for the most part. And you can get all the gory details of the trial, including who to contact to get more information and just try to sign up and those types of things. On the left-hand side shows the list of trials, and there's an indication of the level of match. Like this one says it's a good match, and if I click on the trial, it gives a match assessment. It says, hey, this trial specifically targets solid tumors with the KRAS G12D mutation, right? And my mutations show up in the list up above, and I have the KRAS G12D mutation. So it's giving you an indication of why this trial was selected. And if you scroll down far enough, there may be some that are possible match. The yellow here shows possible matches, and there may even be some that is a poor match based on what you've got. So it orders them, good matches to not so good matches. And when you click on a trial, if I zoom out here, if I click on this trial, it's going to show me the locations on the map for where that trial. So that trial's only in China, right? Nah, not interested in that trial, right? This trial, there's some in North America, including Canada. No, not including Canada. It's Michigan. So maybe you can look geographically to see where they are. And let's say that this is a trial that I'm interested in keeping track of and following up with. There's a little bookmark icon here that I can click, and I can save that trial to my list of saved trials. You can do the same thing by clicking on a trial marker here and clicking on Save Trial. And so, again, a way to look through what trials are available that I might be interested in. So if I zoom out, unfortunately, there's only a couple trials in Toronto and Ottawa and Montreal and Calgary and Vancouver that match my biomarker settings.
Hey, Matt, if you type in Canada with a location, filter by location, is that a good way of doing that?
Yep, you could do that. So there's a lot of ways to slice and dice the information that you see here. You can filter by location. But again, my trials, again, go back to the dashboard. When you click on trials, it takes you by default to my trials, the trials that match your biomarkers. You can also search by clicking on the search button, and you can put in any kind of terms you want, or the trial ID, or this is showing us at this point all cholangiocarcinoma trials that are recruiting. So open trials globally, right? So you'll see the numbers, of course, are much bigger than my specific trials that match my biomarkers. And then you can filter, again, by location. I can say Canada. I can't type today. And apply these filters. So there, it found 91 trials for cholangiocarcinoma in Canada, right? And I can save this search if I want to as well. I'll click on save. I can give it a name. And one of the cool features is that the system, when you save a trial, it will automatically monitor for new trials that show up. So in this case, I told it to search for all trials for cholangiocarcinoma in Canada. If I save it and I leave this monitor for new trials checked, now I'll get an email once a week if there's a new trial in Canada that opens up. And if we click on the saved button here, it shows me what saved trials I have. So that's the trial that I clicked the little bookmark icon for. And if I click on saved searches, there's two different ones. So by default, my trials, the ones that are specific to your biomarkers, are saved, and you'll be notified of new trials that match your biomarkers weekly. And the same thing with that one that we just did for all of Canada, right? And you can turn the monitoring off or delete these or whatever you want. So that's a cool feature. You don't have to be constantly out there scouring clinicaltrials.gov or Biomarkerhelp for new trials that you may be interested in that come out. So that's trials and drugs. We did those. Now, if I go to Connect, this is the dating app that I talked about. So by default, it's going to show you people with all cancer types, any gender, any location, and sort by biomarker match. And of course, this is my real account. Of course, my real account is a strong match because I put my actual information in. So this demo account matches my real account. So I am a strong match, but here it shows, all of the biomarkers that we match, which should be all of them. These ones and 15 more. The health history match, of course, is again the same. I'm in this age range. I'm from here, and I'm active this week. But then there's other people, and if somebody is newly diagnosed relatively less than 6 months ago, they get a little flag. So let's say I want to connect with this Matt guy. I click on send request, and I can type in a message and say, hey Matt, let's connect. And I click on send request, and that will change this guy's card to say pending. And I got an email from the system saying this guy Matt C3 wants to connect with you. Do you want to connect back with him? Let me go do that. Actually, yes, let me go do that. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to have to log out and come back in. If the other person chooses to connect with you, it will send you an email as the person who reached out saying, hey, Matt accepted your connect request. And then you'll see more information in this card, their email address and or phone number, right? And so you can see they would show up in this connections tab. And you can choose to reach out to each other by other means. The requests shows, that I sent a request to this person. There's safeguards in here. If somebody, you can disconnect from people that you're connected with, or if somebody's harassing you or, wanting to connect with you, and you don't want to be connected to by them, you can report them, and the system will send that. So that appropriate action can be taken, those types of things. So if I go back to search, I can also choose to search by health history. So this guy, David, we both had surgery, chemo, stage 3. He's in remission. He's in my age range, right? He matches me by health history, but not so much by biomarker. We have no biomarkers that are shared. Maybe you just want to reach out to somebody who's who's gone through the same type of journey, but not necessarily has the exact same information. And again, it shows right now the majority of people in the system are cholangiocarcinoma patients, but you'll see others. Here's a gallbladder patient here. Here's a pancreatic cancer patient. There's a breast cancer patient. All that kind of stuff. So just a way to be able to look for people and connect with similar-minded people. There is a video lounge, so you can click on the lounge and meet people face to face. It's a free video conferencing place. You can meet up with your connections or other people if you want to via this mechanism, or there's times where patients or caregivers may want to, hey, let's, they may post something on Facebook and say, let's meet in the lounge. I'm going to be in the lounge at 2:00 on Friday. Anybody who wants to come chat, hang out, do that. There's nothing like meeting other patients and caregivers and talking to them in person or virtually. It's really, really beneficial. So that's what that is. The share is just another way to download your information. Research is a whole other piece of the system where you can look, in this case, look at the outcomes of different clinical trials. So it's one thing to know about what trials are out there. It's another to look at the history and the outcomes of other clinical trials. And we're almost out of time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this, but this is geared more towards professionals. You can look at clinical trials and you can look at published research, and this gives an idea of over time, over the years, by quarter, what different drug mechanisms are highly talked about in the research, and how many articles are out there based on different cancer types. This is a logarithmic scale, so cholangiocarcinoma has 5,900 articles since 2021, versus breast cancer has 62,000. Right, gives you an idea of how small cholangio is. So that's super quick. There's a lot to the system. There's a great frequently asked questions section that talks about all of the kind of stuff that you might have questions about, that I would encourage you to look through. The about just talks about what we do and me. And so, yeah, that's it in a super quick nutshell. So with that, maybe we'll take some questions, Leonard.
Yeah. First, that's amazing. What an amazing tool that you've created for people of all cancer types, and even researchers and people like me. Like, yeah, I'm blown away. This is the first time I've seen the website in its entirety, and hats off to you.
Thank
you. So yeah, we have some time for questions. We can go until maybe 2:05 or so. And if you do have questions, just feel free to unmute and you can just ask them. Yeah, Gwen, did you have one?
Gwen, did you?
It's okay. Maybe, I just saw the
Oh, no, I do have a question, actually. It's more of a clinical question. I don't know if it's appropriate for this, but does it ever happen that someone who has microsatellite instability high and a KRAS mutation, prior to a recurrence, requests to be treated with Keytruda?
Say that again.
Does it ever happen that someone with cholangiocarcinoma with microsatellite instability high requests to be treated with Keytruda before recurrence? Or does the recurrence have to occur first?
Yeah, they won't. I'm not aware of any prescriber who would give you an immune checkpoint inhibitor as a
Like
as
a
a post-op.
preventative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The drugs are super powerful, right?
Yeah.
They're not risk-free, and they're expensive, and unfortunately, no. I don't think you'd find a prescriber who would be willing to do that. It's it could make sense, but there's been no studies to show, of course, that it is a prophylactic and would prevent something from happening that otherwise wouldn't have happened or would have happened.
Okay.
So probably not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Felix?
Yeah, a super impressive platform. Really, thanks for walking us through it. I was wondering about, and maybe you mentioned this, I was just trying to take everything in as you were going through the website, so sorry if you mentioned it already, but for something like if you submit your biomarkers and then something that wasn't really tracked in the past gets a new therapy. So I know you talked about like new trials opening. But I know a lot of the issue with biomarker reporting is it kind of
it's a snapshot in time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, I mean the system is automatically updated as new drugs and treatments come out for cancer types and related biomarkers. The system will show those. There currently is not a mechanism to alert you proactively that says, hey, there's a new drug for your cancer and biomarker types. The trials feature is there, but not for drugs. So that's something I hadn't considered, but something that I could easily add so that, in my case, if you look at the screen, there's 4 matched and 3 off label. If that changes tomorrow, and there's a new matched one or a new off-label one, the system could email me and say, hey, there's a new drug, check it out. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. That's what I was wondering. But regardless, it's a really impressive system.
Thank you.
Impressive.
That's a great new feature.
Mary?
Writing it down.
So you can just answer.
Matt, a technical question. My wife had initial marker studies done through Princess Margaret, and the tumor was resected, and now she's had a recurrence. I've heard both sides of it about biomarker updates. I've had a guy from Princess Margaret say, well, the mutation loads in cholangio is low. I don't know if you'll see anything. And I've had other oncologists say, yes, jump at it. You never know about the evolution of the tumor.
Yeah. So they're both right, but the cancer can continue to. You can get new mutations can crop up. That it's rare that they do in a short time frame. I don't know how long it was between resection and recurrence,
13 months.
but it's possible. Yeah, but it's possible.
Yep.
And other than cost, why not? Right? Why not?
Exactly.
Why not turn over every stone and get another test? The more likely, I'm not a doctor, right?
Yeah.
But I've been in this for 12 years, and kind of made the whole biomarker thing my thing, right? And then have talked to I used to do all this stuff for people individually, one-on-one, via email and phone, and it just became overwhelming. That's why I created this tool, so that people can use it themselves without needing me, because it was becoming a full-time job. So I know of people whose biomarkers have changed over time. And most of the time, 99% of the time, it's not because their actual cancer changed, right? The biomarker testing depends on the sample, right? That, we talked about how heterogeneous cholangiocarcinoma is. That means it's very different from person to person. It's also very different within a person. So, if they they resect the tumor and they slice off a little piece of tissue to send for testing, that little piece of tissue might be different than a different piece of tissue in the same tumor. It may have different mutations potentially. So there's the sample that can cause different results in testing, and then there's also the type of test, right? Not all sequencing is the same. They don't all look for the same number of biomarkers. They don't all use the same processes. And so that's the type of testing. The very technical, specific type of testing. And then there's differences between tissue testing and blood testing. Blood testing is relatively new. It's quick, it's cheap, but it's not as good as tissue testing. And so you can get tested multiple times and by multiple different companies and institutions and get varying results. And there's some overlap usually. There's some core things that they all found, but there maybe it's like, oh, well, this last test I got shows something new. Well, is it really new, or is it just something that was missed by previous testing? So be aware of that. But bottom line is, if money is not an option, certainly get retested. Every time there's a change, every time you go from, initial diagnosis, you get tested. You have a resection, you get tested. You have recurrence, you get tested. You if you're still trying different things, maybe you get tested once a year. That's why chemo usually works for a while and then it stops working. Well, it stopped working because the chemo killed all the cells that respond to a specific, to the specific type of chemo, and what's left now is different than what was there before. So the more you get tested, knowledge is power. The more you know.
Yeah, that's a very, very good answer. It answers a lot of questions and a lot of things that I had bouncing in my mind, and you nailed exactly. We're doing blood analysis now, and by almost by definition, it can't be as good, but it's casting a wider net. So, like you say, you don't know what you're going to get when you pull in that net, and that's all you can do at this point.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Peace of mind.
So we got one more question from Mary.
No, that's us, me and Dan.
Oh, okay, you guys.
I got to turn this off now. Thank you.
No
So
worries.
Mary, I owe you a call still.
No, that's okay. I'm learning a lot from this, Matt.
It's okay.
I said I'll save you a call now. That's what I just wanted to connect with and hear your story and so on, and I'm grateful for that.
I'm happy to call still, but okay.
Yeah. And we'll be going to the conference down in Salt Lake City, so that'll be great.
I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
I'll meet you there then.
Yes. Oh, you'll be there, Matt?
I'll be there. Yep.
Oh, perfect. Great. Okay, we'll get to meet you there. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, I got one more question then, maybe for Matt.
Hang on one second. So B had a question real quick too. If you have a specific clinical trial number, can you enter it? Yes. Yes, you can.
Yeah, Matt, and I was just wondering, because I've been on the Facebook group and talking to some other patients from Europe, and they mentioned a clinical trial to me, and I was just wondering, how up to date or how quickly do you get those clinical trials?
It is updated daily in real time.
It is,
the
wow.
U.S. government updates the database once a day, and I get it as soon as they update it.
So if I were to put, say, that clinical trial where in the search area where you shown, and it would tell me if it would be suitable or not?
It will not. It will not. So if you put in a specific trial number, I don't know, do you have the trial number handy?
I do actually. Hold on, I can tell you that momentarily.
Would it tell you if you're like a good match?
No, because it doesn't. Because it doesn't.
It is, the number is N as in Norman, C as in Charlie, T as in Tom, 06898
Yeah. So here it is, but it's when you just do a plain search, it's not comparing what you search for and the result to your health history, but it gives you.
But if you were already a good match,
it would show up in my trials if it were a good match for you.
That's where I should look anyways, and then it can tell me if it'll obviously pop up then.
Yep. Okay. You know, and then it shows you on the map where that trial is.
Yeah.
Is available.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
really
another.
Sorry, but I do have to close the meeting at 2:10. So yeah.
What was your question?
I was wondering how can people support you? Because I'm sure that this is not like, even though it's not for profit or whatever, it probably costs to have the AI software going or the website. Is there any way that someone can support you?
It's a nonprofit. People can choose to donate if they want. If they want to, and there's a link at the bottom that talks about, it's a project of my nonprofit is called the Reidy Charitable Trust, and there's a website for it that's related, but
good.
Yeah, so
okay.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
You're
welcome.
So much. All right.
See you in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Okay. Take care.
Or connect on the website.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.